Call to order the meeting of the Greenwood Common Council on Monday, March the 4th. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the pledge, please remain standing. We'll be led in prayer by Steve Schoen, the senior pastor at Southland Community Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray together. Our Lord and our God, we bow our heads today out of reverence for your power, glory, and majesty. This moment is so much more than mere ritual, tradition, or an item on an agenda. We sincerely come to you tonight out of our deep need for your blessing, leadership, and anointing. Thank you for calling these women and men to serve the people of Greenwood. What they will do tonight is important, and we need your divine spirit to guide these proceedings. So we ask for you to help each council person and staffer to be motivated by love and service. We ask that you would use their deliberations and discussions to create decisions that will bring you glory and benefit everyone in our community. We ask that you would protect each one of these leaders from thinking or acting in any manner contrary to your perfect will. And give each one a passion to find the best solutions over the easiest. Lord, we fully understand how complicated and difficult it is to find unity and camaraderie where there are polarizing viewpoints on the most beneficial ways forward. And that's why we pray to you, our Creator, Redeemer, and Hope. We are asking you to pour out supernatural wisdom upon every leader in this council room. Use each one to fashion decisions that show you are real, present, and active in all of our lives. And we celebrate even now before the first word is spoken because we know you hear and have already answered our prayers. And so, Lord, we come to you tonight grateful for your presence in this place, for your leadership in their hearts. And with this prayer, we also ask you to protect those who run to danger and stand in harm's way to secure our freedom each day. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
You may be seated. Roll call.
Here. Campbell.
Here.
Gibson. Here. Hill.
Here.
Hopper.
Aye. Here.
Lexi.
Here.
Manship. Here. Moan.
Here.
And Williams.
Here. And we have a quorum. All of you should have received copies of our minutes from the last regular meeting on Wednesday, February the 21st. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Lexi, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Vetron. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, then roll call on the minutes.
Petron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship. Aye. Moan.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.
Minutes are approved on a vote of 9-0. Reports, Corporation Council.
You should have received an annual Title VI report. If you've not received the report, please contact me and I'll see that you get it. No action is required tonight. Also, if you have any questions, please contact me after the meeting.
Anything from the controller at this time?
Nothing at this time.
Any other committee or board reports? Hearing none, then this is an opportunity for public comments. If you're here tonight, wish to address the council concerning an item that is on tonight's agenda, this is your opportunity. There's a 5-minute time limit per person and a 20-minute time limit per topic. And if you wish to do so, step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Am I able to put a PowerPoint up or not tonight?
Sorry,
Am I able to put a PowerPoint up? Or?
I believe you should be able to.
Yep. Oh, thank you. These are all you guys. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sounds good, thank you. My name is Sam Hartley, my address is 6992 East County Line Road, Indianapolis, Indiana. What I'm here to talk about today is the first, resolution for today. So, this is on next chapter. So here's a look at the current apartments we have in the area. We have over 750 apartments just in our area in current development. This not counting the additional 296 they wanted to build. That's a high number of apartments. And if I think about your guys' situation, you probably don't have as many apartments in your area. And that's all unrented currently, so. This was just some notes I took from what the county planner said. I don't know, you guys probably got the synopsis of that, but one of the big things I took from it was his focus on it's gonna hurt home ownership in the area overall. And that was even covered by a lady that came from Indianapolis to speak, that there's a high rental amount right now and not as many homes for sale for ownership. And then the other thing that I took from it was, big part was the loss of the spirit of Greenwood. I've lived in Greenwood neighborhoods my whole life. Recently bought on County Line, which is close to Greenwood. I still feel like I'm somewhat part of Greenwood, but even though I'm on the other side. But I lived in the Oaks neighborhood, and we had a real good sense of community. We actually had bonfires at one of the neighbors' houses every weekend in their front driveway, and everybody met and congregated. Same thing at Stonegate off 135 in the Central area. We experienced the same feeling there. So you don't need a lot of acreage taken up to have that same feeling. This came from the lady that came and spoke. She was from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization. So I did the math. Currently, their base rent in Fort Wayne is $1,500 a month. They want to raise, and they said that in the meeting last week, at 4% per year. That would put you at $1,825 after 5 years. Bringing the home income needed to be $6,083 post-tax for them to be able to afford it at the 30% use of their money for housing. So their current bring home would be $5,240, or after 5 years of 3% raise, their income would be $5,240. So they're about $700 short of that 30% mark that they're for, and that's an average. That's statistical for Indiana employees. So, and this was also a figure she showed.
Mr. Hartley, you have 1 minute.
Okay, that's fine. Which she showed us, and if you look, the $75,000 market that they want to be in, and even lower, 50 to 75, there's a significant amount and a appropriate amount of rentals available, so we don't need any more rentals. And then this is on the small business rezoning, which none of my neighbors knew about. because it wasn't clearly written out, and I actually have one coming, and she's not gonna make it in time. But, this is all within 2 miles of my house. So anybody on the east side, their drive distance is only gonna change by 2 miles. We on average drive 18,000 miles a year. The average for the United States is 13,000. We're a higher driving area. 2 mile change isn't gonna affect suburban drivers. But that's all I have for today.
All right.
So,
Thank you. Time's up, I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? All right. Seeing none, then moving on to ordinances and resolutions. First reading, resolution number 2405.
A resolution of the Greenwood Common Council to adopt the written fiscal plan for the annexation of approximately 80 and 9/10 acres located at the southwest corner of East County Line Road and North Five Points Road, sponsored by Campbell.
All right, anyone want to speak to this? I think just for clarification, the resolution is the adoption of the fiscal plan and not the actual annexation. And the next ordinance 2410 on our agenda is the actual annexation. That is correct? All right. Do I have a motion on resolution 2405? Motion, Mr. Lexi, second.
For the sake of discussion, second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. We also have a proposed motion to amend resolution 2405. I think all of you should have received a copy of that. Anyone not receive that?
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Hopper to amend resolution 2405 as the resolution, as the amendment was presented to us. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion on the motion to amend resolution 2405? Hearing none, then roll call on the amendment to resolution 2405.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Excuse me, Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship. Aye. Moans. Aye. And Rivers.
Aye.
Resolution 2405 is amended on a vote of 9-0. Any discussion on resolution 2405 as amended?
Now my time.
Mr. Nelson?
So just want to update you, we did this video for Plan Commission. Recently, Plan Commission did certify its recommendation, vote of 5-3, a split vote. And then with that, they also sent over the staff report as presented to our Plan Commission, which I'm here to talk about staff's perspective on this annexation request that is tied to a zoning request for CS and RA. While staff acknowledges that the location and even the commercial aspect of the zoning are not problematic, staff does have concerns about the concentration of rental homes on a single lot. So the 65-acre area that they're proposing to be one lot of residential homes. That means you cannot, in a future time, convert those to owner-occupied housing. They've cited housing studies that typically or primarily talk about home ownership, houses on the market. This does nothing to add homes to the market. These are rental products that are sprawled over 65 acres. This can have implications to housing monopolies, rental monopolies, corporate ownership, manipulating the rental market. and staff has concerns about the RA zoning aspect, and therefore we were unfavorable. With that, we did propose some commitments if you were to go forward with this. And the plan commission also proposed its own set of commitments that were attached in the certificate memorandum. I understand that Next Chapter Homes is here and they are proposing an amendment to commitment number 5 in the staff report. They would like to shift the east-west road or allow the shift to happen on the southern property line. I have the city engineer here, myself, and Next Chapter, if you have any questions on the proposed commitment change. I would prefer that staff has the ability to locate the east-west road connection and not to put it at this stage in the zoning process in a set location.
Okay, someone else wish to talk to us about this?
I'm here for any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Nelson?
I can come back.
Okay.
The applicant count, it's my turn.
Yes, go ahead.
Promise I'm not gonna go through the whole presentation you guys heard a few weeks ago.
Thank you.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone again. As I said, not going to go through the whole presentation. Would also like to give you a quick update on how the planning commission meeting went, and what we've discussed since then. It was a great planning commission meeting, excellent planning commission meeting, and it was actually so interesting to me that the agenda item right before us was the Central Indiana Housing Study, and there was a great representative from there who came up here and spoke. And I'm just sitting, in the audience watching, just amazed at everything that was being said. And I said to the planning commission, which I recognize a few commission members, and I'll say it to you guys this evening, what does that study say? And what did we hear that night? And what will you hear when you read those studies, with the abridged and full version? It is crystal clear, and it was made crystal clear to everyone in the room that evening. There is a housing shortage. There is a housing shortage, both of rentals and ownership in central Indiana, including Johnson County. What we're proposing, and we're being very transparent about, is a rental development. But I do not want to get it conflated with the decision of ownership versus renting. That's not what this decision is about, and that's not what Next Chapter Neighborhoods is about. As I've mentioned to you guys in the introduction, the people who live in a Next Chapter neighborhood have already made the decision they are going to rent. And as you probably have personal connections and personal anecdotes of people in your lives who have, for whatever reason, chosen to rent, you understand there's a variety of reasons for that. There's a variety of reasons for that, which we can talk about. And it's a good conversation to have. But my point is that decision's been made. But the majority of our neighbors that live with us, they say, I'm going to rent for whatever reason. The question then becomes, where am I going to rent? What is my housing going to look like as a renter? And for my adult life, and maybe a lot of y'all's adult life, the options have been limited for renters. You go to a stacked apartment complex, or you go to an individual landlord, off now one of these listing sites. Maybe there's some other options sprinkled in between. Their Next Chapter neighborhood affords a third new option, a new type of housing. I also told the planning commission when people hear me describe the Next Chapter neighborhood, they try to segment it or compartmentalize it into a bucket. What is this? Is it a single family home for sale? Is it an apartment? And they try to evaluate and judge it based on their preconceived notions. And sometimes I'm successful in convincing and describing how this is neither, and it's a new housing type. And it's something that's been very attractive to the country.
has really taken off in the past decade, maybe more specifically the last 5 years. So I just wanted to reemphasize and reiterate what the Central Indiana Housing Study says, what was presented that evening, and what we firmly believe in, which is why we'd love to come to Greenwood, which is there is a demand and a housing shortage for all types of housing. And we at Next Chapter Neighborhoods believe all types of people, renters, owners, they all believe they all deserve a quality place to live. Speaking of a quality place to live, there's a few concerns laid out in staff's report, which your planning director just hit on lightly. It's interesting the way things can be phrased, the sprawl of homes, and this is something I brought up with planning commission as well, is that it's so fascinating to me to hear some of the concerns that are being discussed through this process about how essentially we aren't dense enough, right? We're taking up 65 acres. You can do those units on 15 acres. Why don't you do that? Which is the complete opposite of what you hear, I've ever heard about our product. And that aside, we at Next Chapter Neighborhoods do not just want to slap 300 homes in a 4-story apartment complex on 15 acres. That is not what we're trying to build. That's not what we're trying to develop. We're trying to develop great neighborhoods for great neighbors. People are going to live here and spend their lives here, and this is why our product stands out from other BTR developers, build-to-rent developers, as well as apartments. We have thoughtful amenities. I went through them in my, I'll go through them here in a second. I went through them in my introduction. There's a reason we take up space. There's a reason, and that is why people who live with us love living with us. That's precisely it. Quickly, something else that came up in the study was affordability. The Central Indiana Housing Study defines affordability. It means different things to different people, of course. They define affordability as 30% of a household income. And as I showed you guys in the introduction, the household income in Greenwood median is $75,000, which is actually almost exactly the national average. And our proposed rents this evening, you can see, also did a little bit of math. We're almost hitting the nail on the head with the definition, according to the Central Indiana Housing Commission, of affordable housing. So there is a need for housing, there's a shortage of it, specifically for 1 and 2 bedroom units, you'll agree, which our development is over 50%. And there's also a need for affordable housing, which coincidentally, because we published these rents before that study came out, coincidentally, we almost hit the nail on the head. So that was very reassuring for me to see, but also I think the planning commission and the council as well. Talk about density, how I think it's a benefit. I just touched on it. If you'd like us to add more units to become more dense, I'm happy to talk about that. But it's just not something that's attractive to us. The amenities I went through, I'll just leave this up here. The one commitment amendment that staff mentioned, number 5, let me draw your attention to it. It's this stub out right here, And you see it lines perfectly with the road that we're going to propose a driveway on. And we originally proposed that road, and I think a month or 2 ago, staff came to us, maybe it was before then, and said, hey, because we want to achieve inter-parcel connectivity, similar to what we're agreeing to do up here, we'd like this road to stub out to the west. And we said, of course, let's do it, and we showed it. At the planning commission, that amendment or that commitment was put on paper, and it said something slightly technically different, which is important, which is that it should be dedicated as public right of way. So the city of Greenwood would maintain it and own it. That is the issue we have, and none of the other roads in our community are going to be public right of way. They're going to be private roads with public access easements over them. And there's some very technical spacing considerations, which I can go into if you're curious, but we do it intentionally. And the planning commission saw it as a benefit because we maintained ownership of the road, so no cost on Greenwood. But if this is going to be required to be public right of way, there's a few issues with that. One, just from a life safety standpoint, can you imagine, have you ever seen a public road running right through, say, an apartment complex, right? Or a small compact neighborhood like this? To me, as a developer and someone who would love to live in one of these. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't. However, I do agree with staff, interparcel connectivity is important, which is why we showed it, immediately. So my request on the amendment would be to amend it to say what we're currently proposing, private roads with public access easement is sufficient, consistent with every other road in our neighborhood. However, if it is critically important to the council that it is public right of way, I agree with your planning director, flexibility into the location of that road is important tonight. And I would just hate for me to be locked in, or Next Chapter neighbors to be locked into building a public road exactly where it's shown on this concept plan. So if it is supposed to be public right of way, if that's important, the answer is yes. I likely would shift it all the way to the south so it doesn't bisect our community. And we'd maybe, try to incorporate an access onto it, but we just don't want to cut you right through the middle of the neighborhood. So we're flexible. We're willing to work with whatever you guys want, whatever planning wants, and whatever staff wants. But that's just our concern, is that we don't want to, 35, 45 mile per hour road running right through our neighborhood. I know there's probably questions. I totally am not going to spend the full 15 minutes, but I'll just leave you with this. We're excited. I got so excited when I was telling the planning commission about it last week. We were meeting internally as a company after that meeting. We're excited. I agree with where we're going to be. So I'm here for questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. Can you tell me what the average space is between each of the buildings?
I can say the minimum first, 10 feet to meet international fire code, just to where we don't have to do any fire retardant walls or anything.
But what is your plan?
Excuse me,
What is your plan though on the spacing?
minimum of 10 feet. There will be homes that are more than that, just depending on the curves of the roads and where they're positioned. But the majority of them will be 10 feet apart. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I'd like to share some concerns I have, and if you'll forgive me, I've typed it out because my brain isn't functioning real well right now. Much discussion has taken place regarding build-to-rent developments. At our last council meeting, we had one of the most thorough presentations that I can remember regarding the annexation of land. A developer, Next Chapter Neighborhoods, proposed a neighborhood commercial area along County Line Road and a for-rent residential housing community located along 5 Points Road. Next Chapter specializes in building rent-to-own single-family housing, focused only on building new homes to rent with no option of buying. They focus on developing 1 to 4 bedroom single-family homes. Unlike our traditional developments, these homes would be built a minimum of 10 feet apart. And to me, if some of you that are as old as I am, you remember the barracks at Atterbury, and that even though it's a home, that reminds me of the closeness of those barracks at Atterbury. The 1 bedroom is projected to rent for $1,500 to $1,700 with 890 square feet. And the 4 bedroom is projected at $2,100 to $2,400 with 1,800 square feet. The median income for Next Chapter neighborhood developments is $106,000, which is $31,000 more than Greenwood's median household income. During last week's Plan Commission meeting, a presentation was made by the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization. Highlights included the following facts. Between 2020 and 2022, the median sale prices of single-family homes increased an average of 31.6% across all MPO counties. 61% of renters were cost burdened as rents had increased 21% over 2 years, while wages were increased by 9%. 2023 numbers have not been finalized, but housing prices have continued to rise, even though sales have dropped. The median sale price of $228,000 in 2020 has increased by $72,000 in less than 3 years to a median price of $300,000. Interest rates have continued to rise, contributing to increased cost of buying a home, an average rate of 7.5. Even though the increase of buying versus renting is a little over 10% more, are choosing to buy in order to establish equity towards future moves. Housing is a quality of life issue. Limited housing options lead to longer commutes, more cost burden, and other lifestyle compromises. Affects the availability and quality of service and goods. Increasing unaffordability is a problem for all. Housing is a workforce development issue. Existing businesses and industries where wages have not kept pace with the cost of living struggle. Talent and business attractions are contingent on housing availability. Companies may decide not to locate in a given area because there is not enough housing, or the cost of housing and thus worker salaries are too high relative to the advantages provided. Greenwood has focused on keeping talent in our area, wanting to have the right fit of jobs and salaries to entice graduates or younger adults to focus on coming back to Greenwood to settle into their adulthood, while having the right amenities to attract right fit growth. The analysis also stated when you have an all rental community with such a high concentration, it somewhat creates a monopoly in that area where it can manipulate the rental market. When rents are increased, it is especially harmful to people on fixed incomes. Granted, there are several great amenities, but is this really the right fit for Greenwood? I've talked to several individuals regarding this development. Some talked about how this is the up and coming trend, how cities such as Austin, Asheville, Raleigh-Durham, Charlotte, Charleston, Sarasota, and Jacksonville, just to name a few, are building development after development, and that we should follow and welcome this trend to stay progressive and popular. In my opinion, Greenwood is not known as a trending city that many college students flock to after graduation. Instead, we're a traditional community making sound decisions and very concerned about making our dollars stretch. I believe we do have a housing shortage. Many seniors are forced to rent as they are on limited income, have downsized, may have medical issues, but cannot find smaller, affordable homes for sale. The same is true with graduates or young couples, perhaps in their late 20s or early 30s. They've been ready for several years to buy their first home. However, it's impossible for them to make car payments, monthly rent, insurance, as well as other monthly expenses while trying to save for a down payment. I see Greenwood more as a community where the majority prefer ownership, not rent. They welcome the opportunity to purchase a home. However, they do not want to be strapped. They still want options of eating out occasionally, a vacation, starting a family, or trading their undependable car for a newer model. With today's increasing expenses, it's most difficult for individuals, young or old, to save money to purchase a home. Instead, some seniors are often forced to move back in with children. Young adults sometimes move back in with mom and dad to save for the down payment. However, with monthly expenses, have very little left to save for that home they so desire. In my opinion, Greenwood doesn't try to mimic trends in our city. We look at our population, listen to what our community tells us, both from a residential and a business view, and progress based on the current factors and needs. Understand we want to keep Greenwood vibrant and progressive, even though we have a significant shortage of starter homes. We must evaluate opportunities and make sound decisions for Greenwood, thus making in the best interest of Greenwood, not trends in other parts of the country. In my opinion, the next chapter neighborhood is not a good fit for our city.
All right,
Thank you.
any other comments or questions? Yes.
That was very informative, and it's interesting how when I listened to that, those are all the exact reasons why we built Next Chapter Neighborhoods. Almost to a T, just a few. majority, just over 50%, are those of that older demographic. Besides downsides, and they're on fixed income, and they appreciate a fixed expense lifestyle to match that fixed income, which is what a next chapter neighborhood brings, for example. Or people like myself who don't want a 7.5% mortgage. I don't want to live in an apartment. I do agree that the majority of people in Greenwood probably prefer to own. I think that's a pretty obvious statement we all agree with. But I will say there's a large chunk of people who need to rent right now and also would want to rent right now. This product is for them. It's not for the people who want to own. I get that. Single family neighborhoods are needed. They're needed. That's not what we are. We're not preventing anyone from buying a house by building this neighborhood. We're giving more options to those who don't want to at the moment. There are single family developers out there, and I'm affected by it personally. I wish there were more starter homes. But where do I live? I don't want to live in an apartment. I don't want my grandparents to have to downsize. What are their options right now? So I don't want to take up too much time with that, but I hear those reasons, and I just hear it's so funny because we say those exact reasons to ourselves. We also just have a much a different interpretation. So that's
And I appreciate that, but the numbers that I took were from the same report.
right, and that report referenced SFR developers, which is not, it is not what a next chapter neighborhood is, and I made this point of planning commission. There is a problem out there in the market of big hedge funds, developers buying up existing single family homes and creating housing monopolies within existing neighborhoods, which is what that was a reference to. That is an issue, right? Can you imagine a hedge fund coming into your neighborhood and buying 50 homes? Of course it's going to charge up rent. They control the market. That's not what we do. We build new homes. We're not affecting the existing neighborhoods. We build a new product for rent. The apartments going up next to us, over 300 units. I don't call that a housing monopoly on the apartment stock in Greenwood. And I don't think that 296 additional rental units should be called a housing monopoly. What that report's references are SFR developers and investors buying existing single family homes and driving up the rents. And that's an issue. I agree.
All right, Mr. Nelson, you have a comment?
I attended that same meeting. One of the things on the report, and I'll read it word for word, contributing, if I can, contributing market factors, market forces, corporate single-family home investors who own as much as 30% of the housing market in some neighborhoods and can drive up rents while dampening home prices and home ownership rates. It's something that's conveniently left out of his report. I think Andrew would like you to think that he does not have investors and he is simply here to make a great community. But it is a fact that they do have investors. They are different from an investment group that is buying individual houses in an existing subdivision. They are cutting out the middleman and building approximately 300 rental homes. Statistics are showing that by 2024, about 40% of all single-family homes will be owned by institutional investors. How much do you guys want to accelerate that trend in Greenwood? I understand they have a pool, they have an amenity center. But when it comes down to this, these are single-family style homes that they are renting out as an investment. Andrew's very good at presenting, very good at sales. I do not doubt that. I wouldn't be surprised if all of you guys sold your homes and started renting at a next chapter home development. But I try to look behind the smooth words and try and look at what we're really doing to the east side of Greenwood. This is a newer thing in central Indiana. And there's nothing that says that their investment group will be the ones managing this property forever. They could easily turn around and sell it to a group that does not care about a great community and is not the best at maintenance. There's no guarantees there.
Right, any questions or discussion on the council?
I'd like to just say something. I was gonna say I didn't want to follow Linda, but maybe now I don't want to follow Gabe, so thank you for that. I won't dig into more numbers and things like that, but we can spin things however we like. But I'd love to give you the ground level view, because my wife and myself, our family, we're home buyers in this area, District 3. You're right, there is a housing shortage, and there's very few options. We don't get the pleasure of packing up and moving wherever we'd like in Greenwood. I got a nice little cube that I got to stay in. And our experience for the past 2.5 years has been good luck. There's very few housing options out there for us. When there is something coming on the market, the prices are ridiculous. I like to think I do pretty well for myself, but I'm not accustomed to buying a $500,000 home that was $200,000 not too long ago. We don't need this. We don't need this at all. What we need is single family homes. We need options for first time home buyers. I'm not fully sold on starter homes either. These guys know that I voted against those several times. But what we need is options. And we're not trying to fill a puzzle piece like the development of 135. I understand landlocked, few options, what's going to go there. You're right, I voted yes to an apartment last meeting. If y'all didn't write it down, I'm sure some of you might have. But this time, I got to hold the ground, and I hope you guys do too. This is fresh land. It's on the edge of town. We don't have to determine the future right now with a project that's not the right fit. So Linda, thanks for doing your homework, because that was amazing.
All right, any other comments or questions?
I like the project, sorry.
I appreciate it still, Dave.
I've talked to several people who are my age or older who are interested in renting at the project. It offers another alternative. My mom could buy a house, but she lives in an apartment because she doesn't want the ongoing maintenance associated with owning a home. I mean, these guys said they'll change a light bulb. That appealed to my mom. It's only 300 homes in a city of 68,000. It's not going to affect rental rates overall any more than the next apartment complex affects rental rates. It offers more supply to the market, which by basic economics has to lower home prices and rents for everyone. So I support the project.
Any other comments or questions?
Sorry, one more. He said he's got 2 neighborhoods in Savannah, Georgia, and if you've ever been there, that's a pretty nice place.
Can I speak to what I had in my paper I gave you guys? Or I'm not allowed to.
I'm sorry.
I mean, there are several inaccuracies that I just have to respond to. Again, what Gabe's referencing that report is SFR investors, people buying existing homes. And to conflate that with what we're proposing just respectfully represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're discussing here. Yes, if a single family home investment group buys up 30 or 40, whatever percentage he cited from the report, yes, that will raise rents in that neighborhood. I agree. That's not what this is. That's not what this is. As Councilman Lexi just explained, simple economics, supply and demand. If this was, I can't help but to think if this was 4-story stacked apartments, a lot of these concerns wouldn't be concerns. But as soon as we've spread them out to create a more enjoyable neighborhood, now suddenly, again, trying to frame it, as I said in the beginning, of something that you're used to, now suddenly these concerns come up. And they're incorrectly cited in the study. So again, just a distinction of what this isn't. Yes, we have investors, and I hate to break it to you again, almost every housing development, people are looking to make a profit. And this was not government subsidized, so you don't have to worry about that. So yes, I have no shame in saying we're in it to make a profit, absolutely. Published our rents, consistent with what's affordable, defined in the housing study. And again, we are not SFR existing housing stock investors.
Mr. Moon, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a few questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Andrew. One is,
I guess my statement is, initially when I met with Nick, it sounded like as a parent of a 23-year-old that just went to look for an apartment, who wanted to buy a house and found that the market was not convenient to that at this point. And so she's a renter because she has to be at this point, right? I take that back. She's a renter. She's in the middle, right? So she wants to buy a house, but she doesn't quite feel ready.
Sure.
So, and my initial thought was this would be a viable alternative to an apartment building that the furniture movers wouldn't haul the couch up 3 flights of stairs. I had to do it myself. And so, moving into a home would be a viable alternative with a rate similar to what we found at every apartment we looked at in the city of Greenwood. I hear the concerns. My questions are these. First, how many total developments do you have? Does your company
This
own?
would be the 5th one, so
So
there's
we-
4 existing.
So there's 4 existing, 3 of those are south,
Yep.
Augusta and
Fort Wayne.
beyond. One is here,
Yes, sir.
and at Fort Wayne. And what year did you guys start developing?
2014.
2014. And do you currently own and operate all of your developments?
No, we sold the first 2.
The first 2 of those
Yes, sir.
sold, okay. So that is an answer to one question.
Yes.
Second, the gentleman that spoke earlier during the open mic time, I know that's not what it's called, but mentioned an idea that rates would raise at a minimum of 4% per year. Is that a common practice within?
And the reason that 4% I said, which I did, that's the market rate nationally. And so if that national rate drops to 2.5%, that's what we're going to match.
And then finally, I guess may or may not be a question for you, but I know Linda brought up a minimum distance between houses. What's the standard? I know that's the minimum for fire rating is 10 feet. Do we have an ordinance on the books that
So
a standard?
typically our smallest one would be 8 feet setbacks, 8 and 8 between 2 separate lots. That'd be 16 total. With this, the reason they're choosing the RA zone is because it does not have a maximum lot size. So their lot is their entire subdivision. The only areas where they have that 8-foot setback are the boundaries of their property. The houses in between, we cannot limit how close they can be as long as they are following building and fire the state codes. So if they increase the firewall rating, they can be closer. If they have a 1-hour wall, they'd have to be farther away. 2-hour wall, they could be closer. Inside the lot, they have the freedom to put these homes in a configuration that they'd like within reason of building and fire safety.
Depending on what they use. So they're saying 10 feet because they don't have to do the firewalls, but if there's another standard that they could.
Yeah, so like a townhome, if you sell, if you have a townhome and both sides are owned by a different owner, they're allowed to be 0 setback because they have a strong enough firewall and they meet our building inspections and follow state building and fire codes.
And I'd be happy to add a commitment that no building shall be attached, which I think is already a commitment. They'll all be detached units and they can't be closer to 10 feet. So we can add that if that's a concern.
Just wonder how Chief Washell feels about that. Not to bring you in this.
Well, we had a pre-development meeting and the fire chief, I don't know if Mark could tell us, he was there and we didn't hear that concern. International fire code is international.
Right.
Right, any other questions from the council or comments?
I do have
Yes.
a comment. The one thing I would note is market increase, they're expecting 4%. He said he would follow the market if it was a 2% increase. He'd probably also follow the market if the market increased 8, 9, 10, 11, 12%. That's really where, back to Linda's point, it does hurt people on fixed incomes. If you have sold your home and are downsizing into a next chapter home and you are on a fixed income, whether maybe it's because you retired or you have some living situation, if they start following market rate, the market goes up faster than your fixed income goes up, you could be in a real housing crisis in this situation. If you have home ownership or equity in the property, that's not as much as a concern with the fixed income population.
Any other questions or comments on the council? All right. Before we vote on resolution 2405, just to be clear, this is a vote on the fiscal plan that is necessary if we actually do the annexation. The ordinance 2410, which is next on the agenda, is the actual annexation. And so, just so we're clear, a yes vote on resolution 2405 is not a yes vote to annex the property, okay? Just so everybody's clear. All right, any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, resolution 2405 as amended.
Campbell,
Aye.
Gibson,
Nay.
Hill.
Nay.
Hopper,
Nay.
Lexi,
Aye.
Manship,
Nay.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams,
Nay.
and Vectron. Nay.
Resolution 2405 fails to pass on a vote of 3-6. Ordinance 2410.
An ordinance annexing certain territory contiguous to the city of Greenwood, placing it within the corporate boundaries and making it a part of the city, and redefining the corporate boundaries of the city to include approximately 80 and 9/10 acres located south of East County Line Road and west of Five Points Road, sponsored by Campbell.
Do I have a motion? Motion, Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. We do have a proposed motion to amend on ordinance 2410. All of you should have received a copy of that. Any questions about that amendment? Mr. Hopper, you make the motion?
I feel like we can vote without the amendment.
Okay. All right, any discussion?
I have a question for Mr. Nelson. If we vote for this annexation, what is the current zoning now? Is it ag?
So the county has this zoned as RR, rural residential. I think I know what you're asking. Are you asking if the annexation were to go and not the land use? I would have to double check my ordinance. I do know that Greenwood does allow the petitioner to propose a zone of their choosing. I would ask that you would consider pairing the votes together for this project. If the vote was to annex the land but reject the zoning, it may put the petitioner in a difficult situation.
So we lose our bite at the apple.
This is our point.
This
But
is
if-
for both.
But for the next, if we,
You could potentially annex it and deny their zoning request, and it would go to a default zoning. But I would recommend that if you choose to, if you plan on denying the zoning, that you respect the petitioner's petition as a package.
I do have a question for legal. Can we annex a property without a fiscal plan?
I don't know the answer to that question. Just
It-
came up.
If I may, maybe speak, and
Yes,
Um,
please do.
I may have to research your question a little further. The fiscal plan does not mean that you're supportive of the annexation, just that you understand that the numbers work, or it'd be if you agree with staff's figures and calculations, not so much whether or not
We have denied the fiscal plan. So where does that put us?
Well, I think we have a lawyer who deals with this
Yeah.
more
Yes.
often than we do, maybe, yeah.
Andy Baroka with Bakery Draper. I was a town attorney for 14 years, so did a lot of annexations, and state law on annexations, as it's been amended a number of times, requires that an annexation provide a fiscal plan for non-capital and capital items, which is why staff prepare a fiscal plan.
Right.
It's required by state law.
Well, that's what I thought, that since,
And Sam, happy to have Sam check it, it didn't mean to interrupt it, but having. done
no,
it
thank you,
before-
thank you very much. And that was my thought, that we can't annex it without a fiscal plan, so it kind of makes this vote. Yeah, so anyway, any other questions, comments? All right. Roll call, ordinance 2410. Oh, I'm sorry, before we do that, do we need to have a public hearing? Yeah, can we vote on it? All right, we'll open it up for a public hearing, the ordinance 2410. You wish to speak for or against? If you're a member of the audience, wish to speak for or against ordinance 2410, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
So this is the time for me to do that speaking or.
You're welcome to.
You may, but just know 6 of us are gonna vote no, so.
Yeah, so-
You are wasting our time.
Yeah.
I just, the only thing I wanted to add was, I had to fly through it, but that report that you spoke to, it did show that the green is, we have enough rental properties in the area, and red is too few. And if you look at that, it shows that rentals, we have plenty, ownership, we're short. So,
All right,
that was the only thing I wanted to,
thank you.
but thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against ordinance 2410? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the council? Seeing none, then a roll call, ordinance 2410.
Gibson,
Yay.
Hill.
Nay.
Hopper,
Nay.
Lexi,
Aye.
Manship,
Nay.
Moan.
Nay.
Williams,
Hey.
okay, excuse me, and Campbell.
Nay.
Still nay.
Ordinance 2410 fails to pass on a vote of 1 to 8. Thank you. All right, ordinance 2411.
An ordinance amending chapter 2, article 6, section 23-38 of the Greenwood Municipal Code as amended, designating no parking on the east side of Wooddale Terrace between Meadow Drive and Carr Street, sponsored by Manship.
You have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Moan. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, resolution 2410, first reading.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Manship,
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Petrov. Aye. Campbell,
Aye.
and Gibson.
Aye.
Right, motion on ordinance 2411, first reading, passes on a vote of 9 to 0.
Mike, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and consider this for a second reading.
All right, we have a motion by Ms.
Second that.
Manship to suspend the rules through second reading and a second by Mr. Hopper. Any discussion on suspension? Hearing none, then roll call on suspension of the rules through second reading, ordinance 2411.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship.
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Petrov. Aye. Campbell,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
and Hill.
Rules are suspended through second reading on ordinance 2411 by the vote of 9 to 0. Do I have a motion on second reading?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second
Second.
by Ms. Manship. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2411, second reading.
Lexi, Manship.
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
And Hopper.
Ordinance 2411 passes second reading on a vote of 9-0. Second reading, ordinance 2405.
An ordinance to amend Greenwood Municipal Code as in Chapter 6, Article 10, to allow code enforcement personnel to enforce regulations regarding street and sidewalk obstructions, tree and shrub trimming, and littering, sponsored by Hopper.
We have a motion, Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2405, second reading.
Manship.
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
And Lexi.
Ordinance 2405 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 2406.
An ordinance to repeal Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 6, Article 5, parades and temporary street closures, sponsored by Hopper.
We have a motion by Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2406, second reading.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
And Manship.
Ordinance 2406 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 2407.
An ordinance amending Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 8, Article 4, Section 8-31, to allow the Board of Public Works and Safety to prohibit overnight parking on city streets and approve overnight parking in city-owned parking facilities.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2407, second reading.
Williams.
Aye.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship.
Aye.
And Moan.
Ordinance 2407 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 2408.
An ordinance providing for an additional appropriation from the clerk's record perpetuation fund to budget classification 411 in the amount of $4,426 in the city clerk budget, sponsored by Hill and Lexi.
You have a motion? Motion, Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Lexi. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2408, second reading.
Betron. Aye. Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship.
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.
Ordinance 2408 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 2409.
An ordinance amending the 2024 salary ordinance, Common Council Ordinance Number 23-33, to increase waste management part-time hourly wage, to provide certification pay for certain positions in the Department of Community Development Services, to change the office manager pay and post-conviction services, and to address changes in the Greenwood Fire Department hiring process. Sponsored by Betron.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Betron, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Manship. Any discussion? Hearing none, then roll call, ordinance 2409.
Campbell.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Manship.
Aye.
Moan.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
And Betron. Aye.
Ordinance 2409 passes second reading 9-0. New business, introduction of new ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 2413.
An ordinance to establish a parking garage operating fund, a parking garage capital replacement fund, and to authorize the transfer of appropriation from the cumulative capital development fund to the parking garage operating fund in the amount of $50,000 for startup expenses, sponsored by Hopper.
Mr. Wright.
Good evening. So this ordinance would create the operating and capital funds for the new garage. It's now up and running. We determined best practice would be to treat it as a business type fund rather than
just paying through the regular city type funds. So we're asking to create the operating fund, which will pay any of the operating expenses, bring in any of the operating revenues. Separate capital replacement fund, we would make an annual transfer into that fund to save up for any large capital replacements or repairs. And then finally, some seed capital to get the thing off the ground. We do have some starting expenses with Dennison, who's operating the garage on our behalf. So we would need the capital to get going there.
Mr. Wright, is this something that we need to suspend the rules on? Are you needing the money?
Not necessarily at this meeting, but if you consider it at the next meeting, I imagine we'll have the first bill ready to go by then and need to pay it before the beginning of April.
Any questions for Mr. Wright? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, miscellaneous business. This is a second opportunity for members of the public to address the council if you'd like to do so. And this time it's concerning items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if you'd like to do so, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And as previously, there's a 5-minute time limit per person and a 2-minute time limit per time. Seeing none, then moving on, any miscellaneous business from the council? Anybody? Corporation Council,
None.
Controller,
Nothing.
Mayor? We are adjourned. Thank you.